whoever is listening to this and thinks, I don't need privacy because I don't have anything to hide.
Just people get tripped up on thinking, oh, they have to go the first day and become Jason Bourne or, you know, something like that. And that's just not the case.
Most of the population is now deeply confused about how their personal data is being used and misused by companies and the government.
We don't need their cooperation. We don't need to ask for permission to save ourselves. We just need to save ourselves.
And sometimes it only takes a conversation to trigger the learning process. So I wanted to have this conversation with you, two Bitcoiners who cherish privacy, two Bitcoiners who have an acute understanding of it, two gifted individuals whose life path and lifestyle reflect a total engagement to enact and protect privacy.
Yeah, that's pretty much the peak mountain, man. Hey, I don't trust anything. I don't trust computers. I don't trust hardware. I don't trust software. I'm not trusting even the dice. It's just me, some paper, pencil, math, and I'm going to sit here and do everything by hand.
He is talking like a Stone Age clown. Maybe you're gay and you are in a democratic society that doesn't care about you being gay. You know, things can change very quickly, and maybe in a year, then it's suddenly not okay to be gay anymore.
Making yourself not the lowest hanging fruit on the tree.
Well, I'm super glad to have you both today with me. I mean, privacy was always a key topic I wanted to address in this Bitcoin Roundtable. First, because it's a core topic for Plan B Network's mission, but also because it's only recently that I've really started realizing how critical privacy is to the flourishing of humankind. And the thing is, I find it a difficult realization, especially for guys like me who grew up in a world celebrating transparency as a condition for justice and security. So, as I was saying, as far as I'm concerned, I kind of bought the idea that losing some privacy was a necessary sacrifice. And there was this mantra, you know, it's okay if you have nothing to hide. But the past few years have been a violent wake-up call. We've witnessed increasing attacks on free speech and mounting financial surveillance. And it's really getting crazy. What's interesting is that more and more people, I mean, it seems like everybody is now sensing the threat. And that's what we learn from this Pew Research survey. I mean, the results are fairly clear. It's no longer us, fringe, paranoid Bitcoiners freaking out about the incoming dystopia. Most of the population is now deeply confused about how their personal data is being used and misused by companies and the government. So people do their best to protect their online privacy, but really they are quite skeptical that they can succeed at all. It's all getting far too chaotic. It's too difficult to figure out how you can trust. So most of us need guidance. And so the importance of privacy for me, for society, is really something that I've become aware of thanks to Bitcoiners like you, Calle, and Fractal. But as many of us, I'm still only, you know, I'm just connecting the dots. And we are many who badly need education on privacy. And sometimes it only takes a conversation to trigger the learning process. So I wanted to have this conversation with you, two Bitcoiners who cherish privacy, two Bitcoiners who have an acute understanding of it, and two gifted individuals whose life path and lifestyle reflect a total engagement to enact and protect privacy. Fractal and Calle, I am super grateful for your presence. With you, we can unpack this critical issue. What is privacy? Why it matters so much, and how we can adjust to our fast-changing world. Is it all right? Does it sound good to you? Are we ready for it?
Absolutely. Let's go.
Sounds fantastic. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess our first step is to introduce you. I mean, you are both very well-known figures in the Bitcoin world. But can you introduce yourself briefly for those who might not know you yet? Can you give us a sense of what you do, a glance at your life trajectory, maybe, and some clues of why privacy matters so much to you? Fractal, do you want to start?
Sure. I'll try to give a quick run through. And as a very young person, I've always been into art, and still that's probably the main focus of my life is kind of trying to create interesting art, because I think that well, realistically, it's not even art that I'm trying to create. I'm trying to create something that doesn't exist in the world yet that I want to see. It just takes the form of art in most cases. But realistically, I just have this drive to make something cool. And it started when I was really young. I've been doing like art stuff since I was a child, and my dad was a programmer, and I always had a bit of the art and a bit of the computer math side, and the combination of those two has made my style somewhat unique, I think. And a lot of people comment on that, where a lot of artists have less of an analytical or precision mindset, whereas to me, I'm very much into alignment and getting things kind of organized in a very methodical way. Some artists will want to make a picture and just leave it up to the interpretation of the viewer, whereas for me, I usually have a direct and very specific thing that I'm trying to say. So it's just a matter of trying to decode the message that I've encoded into the artwork for people. But this leads into somewhat of the life trajectory. So I've been doing art a long time. I've also sold art over the years, and in the 90s, I basically hit the rave scene, and it seemed like that changed my whole mindset on privacy. I think from that time on, so the early 90s, I just basically started refusing to let people take my picture. And even at that time, they had some online communities. They were called BBSs at that time, pre-internet, and people would use handles there, and the handles were your identity, and it was absolutely unheard of for someone to put their identity as their real name. So I just grew up in this culture where people had basically like a digital identity that really was not connected too much or at all to their physical identity. And then also I had this sense that we were involved, this rave thing was like semi-legal in most cases, or fully illegal in some cases. So there was this mindset that we were doing something that was life-changing and important, and there was technology involved that was enabling us to kind of level up as human beings, that was being oppressed. And in fact, if you got caught with some of this technology, you could actually do serious time. So there was a big push for privacy. And even in the community, it was like kind of frowned upon to go around with the camera and just taking pictures in some of these events, because it was just known that, hey, some people may frown upon this. You may get somebody in the background of the picture that doesn't want to be there. And this problem has only exacerbated in the current day, where you just have ever-present cameras. But even back in the 90s, we still were thinking about this stuff. So so just fast forward to today. I don't want to get too long-winded here, but I think that gives a pretty good basis for where I started. And now I do mostly Bitcoin art. I also did a lot of psychedelic art, and somehow I combine the two nowadays, because I think they're both very important complementary revolutionary technologies that are both extremely powerful and deeply misunderstood by the masses. So part of the art that I do is to just bring this out, that, hey, these are tools that you can use. They're wholesome. They're actually good family value stuff that will help you out in your life, and has helped me. And maybe just check it out. Some of the information you got fed may not be what it is. So I try to put the information in the art. And with that, I'll pass it on.
It's fascinating. I mean, there's a lot of coherence in the whole life path, geared toward manifesting in the world things that are not there yet, and that you end up calling them art. But yeah, I mean, they come from a different dimensions. Your creation, they're absolutely beautiful and loaded with a lot of meaning. It's. Do you want to say a few words about these this pieces of art that you have on your website, and that we can admire in Bitcoin conferences?
I mean, that was super kind of you to say all that. And of course, I would take the opportunity to talk about the art. If you want to flip back to that last slide that had the 3 images on it, I'll just quickly run through the three that are here. The one in the center is the Bitcoin full node sculpture. That's probably my most well-known and my oldest sculpture. And the idea behind that, it was meant to be a working Bitcoin full node and block explorer. So it has a lot of the Bitcoin, it does have everything kind of Bitcoin related to the code, the culture around it, but specifically the clock and calendar like nature of it. So it basically tries to break down all 132 years of the Bitcoin issuance cycle from 2009 all the way to 2140. The cutouts that you see there are proportional to the halving, so that shows how much Bitcoin is released in each halving. And the first cutout on the left side is so big, it just shows it's hard to comprehend, but like realistically, half of all Bitcoin that were ever mined were mined in the first 4 years. So we have 21 million ever. The first 10.5 million were mined in the first 4 years. So those cutouts show you that the quicker you could get in, the sooner, the more access you'll have to supply, because it becomes extremely contracted. So you learn a lot by making art, I think, because you want to convey the information right, and you want to do it over time. And I think in order to do that, you have to learn it well. So in order to make some of these things, I have to do a lot of deep study. So I enjoy that. The one on the right side is a set of 3 analog computers. What these allow you to do is to create Bitcoin keys entirely offline. So you don't need any computer. You could just use these analog computers and not have to trust any software or hardware, any kind of basically, you don't even have to trust the dice that you're using. The system has a way to de-bias the dice, because every dice may be cheating in some way as well. Like they're not perfectly balanced. So it has a system.
So it's a piece of art, but it's also some engineering tools, really, cypherpunk art/tool to be fully autonomous and independent from and protected from technology risks, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much the peak mountain man. Hey, I don't trust anything. I don't trust computers. I don't trust hardware. I don't trust software. I'm not trusting even the dice. It's just me, some paper, pencil, math, and I'm going to sit here and do everything by hand. And that really appeals to me. It's part of that privacy aspect, I think, is also the trust aspect. The trust is basically, it allows you on your privacy spectrum how much you want to selectively reveal yourself to others. And and then the last piece there is called It's About Time, and it's just a piece all about timekeeping, and it's basically a very fancy hourglass, but it has a perpetual calendar on one side that's geared, and you can kind of set it, and it also has a sundial and some volcanic sand on the side. And I've also time locked Bitcoin in there for the crystal. Is also, it's a timekeeping mechanism, because quartz we use to you have quartz watches, so right. It's the amount of time that it takes to oscillate the quartz back and forth is used to see how many seconds have gone by. So I actually hand mine those quartz in Arkansas. I go every year to do crystal mining, and I've always wanted to use them in an art piece. And I finally got a chance, and I was telling myself, man, it's about time I got a chance to do this. And so I even named the whole art piece It's About Time, because I realized the whole art piece was about time.
Yeah,
so it kind of flowed all from that quartz piece, which you just keyed in. And I time lock some Bitcoin into this. So there's a Bitcoin that releases every 21 years for the next 210 years. So basically, whoever owns it now, they can pass it down in their family, and over the generations, each generation will get their own Bitcoin unlocked over time.
No way.
Yeah. So.
That's a precious piece of art then. And then perhaps, I need to mention the Timechain Codex, which you've put together building on some articles, right? And I loved it so much that I decided to translate it with a friend, Asio. And that's how I got to know you. Do you want to say a couple of words on this one?
Absolutely. Yeah, the Timechain Codex was a graphic novel that I made based on Drew Van Saal's Bitcoin astronomy articles. And there's 132 pages in it, which is based on the Bitcoin issuance cycle. And also the whole story is about what happens as humans start to leave the planet and go to Mars or go off planet, and how does Bitcoin tie into that? And it turns out that Bitcoin not only is deeply entrenched in this, but it actually incentivizes humanity to go out into the stars and create new create new wealth and new worlds, because the way that the time chains work is each world pretty much needs their own native currency, and you can also make currencies that expand through entire solar systems and entire galaxies, and it basically all would be based on the Bitcoin first principles that started here on Earth. And I don't know, it was just really cool I always wanted to make a comic book my whole life. I've been a huge comic book nerd, and I love that story that Drew Bensall had written. I tried to get people that were actually comic artists and comic book people interested in it, and nobody cared. And that's how the world is. You just, if there's something you care about, you got to do it yourself. So when the AI art started coming out, Gigi told me about it, and he made some posts about it, and I thought, this is absolutely retarded. This stuff is so dumb. And I started playing around with it to prove how dumb it was, and then I actually started having a lot of fun with it, and I was like, ooh, this is cool. And I started seeing people do some interesting things with it, not just making the images, but kind of bringing it into the real world. I saw people making t-shirts and tarot card decks, and really kind of using that as a tool to make something else. And then when I got the idea to do the comic book, it was just like, I don't know, mind-blowing. So I was able to I just spent 21 days, it turned out, from start to finish, just learning that software. I'd never touched the Mid-Journey before at that point, and just did the whole comic book within that 21 days, the script, the whole thing, and then start to finish. And I was achieving a life goal that you always wanted to do. And there's just no way that this would be possible, because to make a comic book in today's world, you need a penciler, a graphic, an inker, you need a letterer, you need a distribution company, a publisher, a printer. I did all that myself due to just having this AI ability to
and what's interesting is that there's many people who sort of intuit or look at Bitcoin as a living organism, and it playing out at a global level, at Earth level. But here, what's absolutely fascinating is that you manage to convey the notion that Bitcoin is a living and breathing and pulsating living being throughout the galaxy and many galaxies. It's just fascinating. I think it's a must read for any Bitcoiner. I mean, just to conclude on this introduction, I'd say I've discovered you as someone who really celebrates the beauty of science, the enchantment of human discovery, of cosmic mysteries. So for me, you're the cypherpunk artist, the techno-savvy, the inspired alchemist. And I'd like to add something, because I see you also a bit as the modern shaman, type of Terence McKenna, Rupert Sheldrake, Graham Hancock type of person. Somehow, it seems to me, perhaps we'll discuss it later, but it seems you tap into forbidden science, into heretic knowledge and wisdom, or long forgotten human heritage. And your work really blends science, arts, alchemy, shamanism, and I guess you need a lot of privacy to fulfill this role in Serenity. Am I right here?
Absolutely, and that's a huge compliment that I'll take. Thank you very much for saying all that. But yeah, one of the things is it helps you to have these kind of revolutionary art manifestos if you also don't have your identity out there, because it's just seems like, and this is true not only for me, but even going back to the idea of the panopticon, where they have this kind of cell where everybody can see everything that you're doing. People just change their behavior when you feel like you're being watched all the time. So having some bit of privacy to just create what you want to create. And also I think the privacy is important, because as an artist you have to suck for a while and be terrible and make things that aren't good. And you need privacy to do that, because it's do as much crappy work as you can in private, and then when you can finally make something that you're proud of, then you show that one. So it's you need this to level up as a person with your skills. It may be quite embarrassing to show your first works, because you don't have the skill set that's as good as your taste yet. Whereas as you build that skill level, then you become able to to kind of break that. So there's all kinds of layers to that. And just I feel like I'm monopolizing this time. I want to pass it over to Calle, but the last thing I'll say is that if anybody is interested in the Timechain Codex, I do have it for free to read all over the internet. So you can read it free on X, you can read it free on my website. There's a Swan hosts it. There's a couple other places on the internet where if you just search for the Timechain Codex graphic novel, you'll be able to read it for free. So check it out.
Excellent. Calle, do you want to say a few words about yourself, what you do, your trajectory, and why you care so much for privacy?
Well, first of all, thanks for the invitation, and also that was a great introduction by Fractal himself. I'm a big fan of his art and all the contributions that he has been making for Bitcoin and the culture around Bitcoin. So that was a really fascinating thing to listen to. I am a developer myself. I've been working on Bitcoin programming on Bitcoin for several years. Most of my time I've spent in the first couple of years as a Lightning developer. And I was initially very fascinated by Lightning itself because it allowed users of Bitcoin to finally transact in a way that I always thought that was missing in Bitcoin, which is in a fast and also private way. So when I think of the earliest moments that I discovered Bitcoin, I still remember this very vividly, that as my first understandings of how the blockchain works came as a kind of completed in my head. The first issue that I saw with it was related to privacy itself. I couldn't believe that the system was designed in a way that everyone would be able to see all the inputs and outputs of a transaction, and that every transaction would lead to all my transactions in the past and all my transactions into the future. Honestly, when I discovered that, I thought that I must be missing the point, that there must be something in the system that prevents this from happening. And as I discovered Bitcoin more and more, I came to realize that it's one of the foundational principles on which this whole system is built on, which is transparency and verifiability of the entire system. So at this point, I have come to a different way of squaring with these let's say properties of Bitcoin and how I integrate it into my overall image of the system. But this also means that there's a lot more to work on and to build for people being able to use Bitcoin in a safe and private way. And
you've been trained as an engineer. Did you always have this concern for privacy, or is that something that came up as you discover Bitcoin, or was the notion of private peer-to-peer exchange already something ingrained in you as an objective, or
Well, first of all, I haven't been trained as an engineer. No, my background is theoretical physics. So my life before Bitcoin was heavily focused on research and fundamental physics research, basically the ordinary kind of deep physical science that you can imagine. So I've been working in that field, which was totally unrelated to Bitcoin. But all this life before that gave me very important experiences that I still can make use of in my life today. However, although not being trained as an engineer, I've been a programmer my entire life. So I've been working with computers, on computers, breaking them, hacking them since I was a child. And I've been also online since I was a child. So I remember the internet from the old days that also Fractal briefly mentioned here, that an internet world where the personal identity of a user was not even it wasn't even a question whether you would identify yourself or not, because it was not important. Social life on the internet would take place in chat rooms mostly, where every participant would have a nickname that that could even be ephemeral. So you could just choose a new nickname with every new day that came. And the only thing that gave you a personality, a sustained personality, is your own choice to keep that identity, which you could recycle at any moment that you want. So early on, I realized that, first of all, you have the ability to reboot your identity at any moment. But second of all, also keeping your identity makes it easier for others to identify yourself and to build friendships a social circle, or just also acquire a certain, let's say, proof of work during the use of this one identity. So very early on, and I think everyone on the internet from that time can still remember that, it was very clear to me that there's a very strong distinction of what we call identity in our physical lives and our digital lives. And then after this era ended, and this was the era in which the internet became a more mainstream pop cultural phenomenon, then only then we saw the social networks appear that allowed you to put on a profile picture of your face and nudged you to enter your first name and last name as your instead of just a nickname. And people were compelled to share more and more. I also think that since this was in the early beginnings of the social era of Web 2.0, what we call today Web 2.0. Let's say Facebook was one of the driving forces in this era. It abused the need of ordinary people to share their lives in a way that they were not prepared to handle yet. So everyone who's been online during the time will remember that people were basically just uploading whole folders of pictures from their vacations, just drag and dropping it into Facebook and uploading these, large collections of photos that they might not even have screened individually, just sharing it as much as they could, because one, it was a very new thing to do, and people were not they could not understand yet what kind of consequence oversharing on the internet could have. And second of all, as I briefly said, it also hinges, like it taps on our primal instinct of wanting to share our experience with our friends and our family. Everyone knows this. You look at a sunset, for example, and the sunset feels only half as beautiful if you cannot watch the sunset with someone that you love. So I think this is a fundamental desire that we have, that the social media companies were able to leverage and bring us into a world where we would give up basically, without your active work against this, we would basically give up total our entire privacy in our worlds online. And this is somehow weird, because in our physical lives we depend on privacy, and we've always depended on privacy. Fractal gave a very nice intuition of this. As an artist, you need the room to fail, for example. In physical life, you can always close the door, or you can just move to somewhere else where you're not watched. You can whisper into someone's ears, or you can hide behind a curtain. And this gives rise to many important structures that we have built in society that we depend on, and we depend on the availability of privacy for so many things. And the most important of those things is probably democracy itself. We forget that, but the democracy, I mean, I realize this is now a large jump, but just go this step with me. You cannot imagine democracy without privacy, because your vote needs to be private.
Sure.
If your vote is not private, you can be coerced into making a certain vote, or you can, after the fact, you can be rewarded for giving a vote to someone, certain party, and so on and so forth. So even like the most fundamental building blocks of our lives, of our social lives, of our lives in society, and also lives in governments, depend on a certain level of privacy, which is usually enforced through physical means, right? So in the ballot box, for example, you will close the curtain and then put in the piece of paper that looks like every other piece of paper. So now in the digital life, in our digital lives, following the normie path into the internet from Facebook on, like it starts with Facebook. It doesn't begin earlier for the normie, basically. It looks like we don't have any of that. So like every single step that you go is visible to someone. And even if you sometimes need a username and password to log into an interface that is not accessible to the public, let's say your online banking account, for example, you still reveal yourself to at least one other party that knows what you're doing, right? Even if you can fend off the public, you usually have no choice whatsoever to interact with at least one party that can see what you're doing. And you know, coming to try to conclude this long monologue, but coming to Bitcoin and how this intervenes with money, I think this is, you know, money is a fundamental messaging piece of unit of messaging of information that is often, like we say, it's half of every transaction that we do as humans. So it is everywhere. And also our money itself, up until we invented digital money, relied or gave us these assurances of privacy by making paper money look alike. And as soon as we transitioned into an internet world, the only option that we ever had with interfacing with money, and this is still true today, this is still the same situation if you look at fiat, is that you must interact with at least one other, often trusted, but that's not the point right now, but a third party that can see what you're doing. So it's either your bank, or it's PayPal, or it's like some payment processing operator or something that needs to know who you are, because we have no other way of verifying the validity of a transaction in the digital space until Bitcoin. So this is where, for me at least, all these stories, they come together and culminate in the creation of a neutral money by Satoshi, that although it is, you know, as I mentioned in the beginning, it has this, you know, it's radically open and it's radically verifiable. That means you can see all the inputs and outputs of every transaction. But because there is no institution or entity that offers this service to the world, it gives us the possibility to build something on top of it that also gives us privacy. And I think this is not just a feature of Bitcoin, it will be a defining feature of money in the future, because we are at a very special moment in human history in which we digitize. And it's going to only happen once in our entire history of humanity. So all the small choices that we make today, I think, will have very large consequences in the future. It's a bit like, you know, a butterfly effect kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so that's why.
So you were saying, okay, you discover Bitcoin, you find it fascinating, yet you realize that there's this transparent public blockchain, and say, okay, but we can build upon it. And then you start you work on Lightning, and then more recently, how long is it since you started working on Cashu? Can you tell us about Cashu?
Yeah, Cashu has been around for a bit over 2 years so far, and it is a Chaumian eCash protocol. So Chaumian eCash itself is the first cryptocurrency ever invented, and it's from 1982 by a guy called David Chaum. David Chaum is a very well-known cryptographer, and the cryptography space is like one of the very big ones. And when you think of cypherpunks themselves, you know, if you had to list like the 3 biggest cypherpunks, he is one of them. So he's like the godfather of digital currencies in 1982. And he was almost 30 years before Satoshi. So it's a that old system. And in 1982, David Chaum invented eCash as a concept that uses blind signatures, which is a cryptographic method, to design a digital money system that cannot be traced. So still, this is a digital currency system, money system that depends on a trusted third party. So it's kind of offered by the bank, for example. It's like your bank would have to be the eCash service provider. However, it was designed in a way that the bank would not be able to see who you're paying, how much you have, and it would even not be able to take away your money. So it's also censorship resistant as long as the bank still exists and so on. So this is super early, and it was the most interesting thing at the time, and it looked like the entire digital economy would be built on top of this concept. But then as time goes by and DigiCash, the company of David Chaum, was supposed to build these systems and had lots of very big deals with Microsoft and Credit Suisse and Deutsche Bank and all these very big names that wanted to jump onto the eCash wagon. None of these deals really closed at the end of the day. There's many reasons why this might have happened in history, but lots of them also have to do with David Chaum, but maybe also just they were a bit early. In either case, in the early 90s, mid 90s, it became clear that DigiCash itself, or eCash with it, eCash had failed, and we saw the emergence of credit cards and PayPal. So all the non-privacy payment systems. So fast forward, coming to 2009, Satoshi invents Bitcoin, and then fast forward multiple years, then at some point we have Lightning. That's also where I start to contribute more in the Bitcoin ecosystem. And Lightning works really well, but it still has some hiccups here and there, which is mostly the reason why most people go back and use custodial systems, basically step back from what we've achieved to gain more convenience and make it cheaper to use and so on. People start using custodial services again. And so that's when we started working on Cashu, which is essentially taking those ideas from the early 80s, from David Chaum, and instead of using it on top of the banking system, use Bitcoin as the underlying basis for which we can build eCash systems on top. And that is Cashu. So Cashu is a free and open source protocol. It is not a single app or not a single service or anything like that. It is an open protocol that invites everyone to build their own software with and on. And since then, we've seen lots of different projects implementing this and building the so-called eCash wallets, which are essentially trying to be custodial Lightning wallets, so trusted third party necessary, but with incredible privacy. So it gives you kind of the benefits of a custodian being easy to use, also the issues with a custodian of not, your Bitcoin not being in your control. However, the compromise you take is with that, accepting that is incredible privacy. So you can use custodial services with a privacy that is even better than Lightning itself, and certainly better than just using pure Bitcoin itself. And our hope is with this system, we can build at least the foundations for what I always wanted to see also in Bitcoin, being able to make micro transactions on Bitcoin very cheap and very fast without being able to track, so that we can actually make them everywhere we go online.
Yeah, I think we'll take some time to dig into all these details of all the benefits, the use case, the trade-offs, and etc. I mean, I'm not technical myself. I'm just tinkering a little bit with this and that, and I've played with Fedimint and with Cashu, and I have to say it's extremely exciting because it works so easily. It's so fast. It doesn't cost anything. And it seems like you're bringing more features, more application with every passing month. So we can discuss it later on. So what we understand is that each of you has got a deeply anchored interest in privacy and a life trajectory that reflect this concern for privacy. And perhaps we can look at what is privacy, maybe start defining this word before we look at the challenge that we're facing nowadays with regard to privacy and financial privacy. I took a few definitions which are hopefully quite complementary. I can read some of them and maybe we can comment them. So first definition from the Oxford English Dictionary: privacy is the state or condition of being free from being observed or disturbed by other people. Another definition from the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, post-Second World War: no one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference with his privacy, family, home, or correspondence, nor to attacks upon his honor and reputation, everyone has the right to the protection of the law against such interference or attacks. Here's another one from the International Association of Privacy Professionals. So it's kind of a big tech platform think tank. They say privacy is the right of an individual, to be left alone, out of public view, and in control of information about oneself. Yeah, and maybe I'm going to add this last definition, which is from Eric Hughes, a cypherpunk's manifesto. Privacy is necessary for an open society in the electronic age. Privacy is not secrecy. A private matter is something one doesn't want the whole world to know, but a secret matter is something one doesn't want anybody to know. Privacy is the power to selectively reveal oneself to the world. Right. So what's your take on those definition? What would be your reaction, looking at those different perspectives we have on privacy? Fractal, do you wanna start?
Sure. For me, 3 started to be the first one that really hit for me. I like the way that that's phrased, and then the number 4 also obviously is something that resonates with me. I think when defining privacy, one of the things that people get tripped up on, and I think this is important to highlight, even though it's really not defining privacy, is that it's not any specific thing. It's actually a spectrum. So you could have, there's no absolute privacy that you're ever going to get in this world, as far as I'm concerned. Pretty much like everything, there's something spying on you everywhere. So it's just a matter of making yourself not the lowest hanging fruit on the tree, so that, if there's people picking off fruits, and then you're just not happen to be that. So it's basically just it's incremental. So each little step that you can implement in your life is going to add additional layers of privacy for you. And there's just, it's always beneficial to continue adding them. It just, people get tripped up on thinking, oh, they have to go the first day and become Jason Bourne, or, something like that. And that's just not the case. You could just do, small steps over time. The only thing is you have to realize that, once you put something out on the internet, there's no taking it back. So it's basically anything that you do expose, you should be extremely intentional about it, and you shouldn't just willy-nilly stuff out there. You should really, limit what you put out there, because once it's out there, you can't take it back. And I think, like, Calle brought up a really interesting thing about the burnable identities from or the disposable identities from the early internet time. And I want to highlight the fact that you could still do that today. Like my Fractal Encrypt identity, like I just created that on the fly when I started doing the Bitcoin thing, because I had moved off from, I was like, okay, if I do my psychedelic thing, I had an identity under that I was doing called Shamanic Harmonic. So I did that for, a decade. And then as I knew I was like kind of making a hard fork on the path of the art there into the Bitcoin, because I got so inspired by this, like, because it's a big deal, like, to kind of implement a new art subject into my repertoire, because basically I'm out there trying to spread the gospel of this stuff. And so for me to kind of incorporate Bitcoin was a big, huge deal. So I actually created an identity for that. And it was basically under the same premise that Calle outlined, that you can just create these burnable identities, and it's only your decision whether you want to continue this any farther or not. I could just disappear from the internet at any fucking point and like just become the next identity that I want to be. And the only reason I can do that is because I have created this. If I just go in under my own name, like, then okay, you have to dispose of that and but the fact is, even if you do go under your own name, like even if you're right now posting under your full last, middle, last name, first name, everything, that's your identity, you can tomorrow become Mr. Bitcoin and then just like roll with that. And then you could roll with that for as long as you feel cool with that. And then as soon as Mr. Bitcoin doesn't feel good for you, you just burn that and just become something else. And it's actually healthy. Like, you're cleaning out. It's like the forest, having those forest fires, cleaning it out. And I think that's I'll leave my definition of privacy there.
Yeah.
Overstated.
Calle, what's your take?
When So I think like the first distinction that we can make here, also given the list that you've outlined, is the distinction between a kind of privacy that allows you to be a more free person and more productive person, and I'll go into that in a bit. And the other part is, I think, a bit more severe, which is protecting yourself from harm. So these two are intertwined because they both foot on the principles of privacy, but I think the motivation for both of them can be quite different. So first, let's talk about the freedom-giving aspect of privacy as a personal being. First of all, whoever is listening to this and thinks, I don't need privacy because I don't have anything to hide. This is the most common thing that you will hear from people who haven't thought about this issue deeply yet, is I have nothing to hide. So I'm not too concerned that something is watching over my shoulder or reading my messages. You need to understand, first of all, that you are maybe you feel safe right now, but the fact that you feel safe right now is basically just luck. So things could change very fast in life, especially in politics and society around us. So maybe, I don't know, maybe you're gay and you are in a democratic society that doesn't care about you being gay. You know, things can change very quickly, and maybe in a year, then it's suddenly not okay to be gay anymore. And then suddenly you will understand the value of privacy. And you might say, I'm not gay, so I don't care about this issue. But maybe you're a Christian and you believe in religion and God. And think about how life could change for religious people very quickly. So you might want to consider at least trying to understand why people choose privacy, and before you judge their intents. But this is just my preface. So when talking about personal freedom and privacy, I think, and this is why I respect especially artists like Fractal, who remain private a lot about for their decision, is being private, being a NIM and producing work as a NIM also means that you're separating yourself somehow from your work. So as a creator, as a creative person, but also as a developer, and also looking at Satoshi, and Satoshi chose to be private until he disappeared, it means that you have more freedom and more space to let your work speak for itself, because people will not associate your work with a face, and will not associate, or will at least less associate personality to the product that you put out in the world. Now, you might want to associate your identity or personality with your creations, but then there will always be some added thing on top of that. So as an artist, as a programmer, as a creator, it gives you more room to act, to think more freely, to say what you think, because people don't have the typical leverage on anyone else who just openly shares their identity with the world. It might be things that, you say some things that some people don't like, which is always the case on the internet, and then they dig up something about your life using a Google search and can start criticizing you about things that have nothing to do with your work, for example. Just making one example of how privacy for a creative at least can give them more freedom.
Yeah.
And for the second point about privacy being as a tool for protection, I think, I started off with this, that we talk mostly about, and this is very unfortunate, we talk mostly about privacy against the ruling system. So, and usually the ruling system is the government in which you live in. It's usually a nation state in which you were born or are situated in. And this is where, the fight, the fight for privacy is a fight, why it's a political thing, why it matters so much. And this goes also, this is in the definitions that you have offered here. Number 2, the Human Rights Declaration goes towards this. It means what happens if the political system in which you live in suddenly decides that you are now the enemy, and how can you protect against that? And
yeah, and it's not a coincidence that this definition came out right after the Second World War, where people witnessed very severe and tragic government overreach and violation of the private sphere, right?
yes, absolutely. I mean, there are horrible stories from that time, and one story that I just heard recently was the reason why the Nazis had such an easy time to murder that many Jews as they did in the Netherlands when they invaded the Netherlands from Germany, was because the Dutch had this elaborate system of keeping, lists of everyone and their belief and their religious belief in like a centralized, basically database, made of paper, of course, back in the time. But just this primitive act of collecting data of your populace can have like very, very negative consequences in case the political system flips. And this is, in the Second World War, many millions of people have died because data was simply easily available to the wrong people.
I'm tempted to interrupt you, if you don't mind, to play this this short clip from the World Economic Forum, where the Prime Minister of Spain is making the case for removing anonymity on the internet, and that sort of resonate with what you just said. Are you okay with this?
Absolutely.
Let's listen to this.
I propose putting an end to anonymity on social media. In our countries, no one can walk the streets with a mask on their face or drive a car without a license plate. No one can send packages without showing an ID or buy a hunting weapon without giving their name. And yet, we are allowing people to roam freely on social networks without linking their profiles to a real identity. This paving the way for misinformation, hate speech, and cyber harassment, because it is facilitating the use of bots, and it is allowing people to act without being held accountable for their actions. Such an anomaly cannot continue. In a democracy, citizens have the right to privacy, not to anonymity or impunity, because with those two, social coexistence would be impossible. That is why I believe we must push forward the principle of pseudonymity as the functioning element of social media, and force all these platforms to link every user account to an European digital identity wallet. This way, citizens could use nicknames if they want, but in the case of a crime, public authorities would be able to connect those nicknames to real people and hold them responsible. Because accountability is not an obstacle to freedom of speech, it is an essential complement to it. On social media user, or it's much better to say, one social media user, one real ID. This is the only way to really ensure that minors do not access inappropriate content.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack in this short video clip. Presented in a way, I guess, to make sense and very rational and so on. Probably or very certainly downplaying the risks. Who wants to start unpacking this clip?
I could jump in here, or at least start it off. I have a lot of thoughts on this, obviously, but I think listening to that, it just sounds like those people are promoting the evil empire in so many ways. It's just, there's so many things wrong with what was just said there that it's basically the antithesis of what we've been talking about. But at the same time, it's the same thing that we've been hearing over and over again. Like, time is a flat circle. If you think back to the time of the cypherpunks and the encryption wars back in the 90s, that was the same exact thing that they were fighting against, was the rhetoric that, you know, people don't need this privacy. In fact, the government tried to introduce something called the Clipper chip, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with at all, but basically what the Clipper chip was like an encryption device. So it basically would have encryption, so it would encrypt your data from everybody, but the government has a backdoor to it.
That's it.
And the fact of the matter is, it wasn't cryptography with a backdoor means if it's a backdoor for one, there's a backdoor for everybody. It's just a matter of finding that. So one of the things the cypherpunks did was they looked at it and they said, well, this actually doesn't use enough bits of entropy to even be secure from a very strong attack. So they just put some computers at it for a couple of days, and they were able to crack the encryption of the Clipper chip in some company in New Jersey or something like that. And so that started the whole conversation about, like, we can't have this, you know, this privacy for, and that's basically what this gentleman or this guy was trying to promote, where you give your identity to the social media platforms that you could still be pseudonymous to the world, but we want to know who you are. So that again creates the panopticon situation where you don't say what you actually think because you are worried about repercussions. You know, Calle brought up the voting thing before, which I hadn't even considered, but voting is like the core of everything. We just had that election in Mexico where a whole bunch of people got killed up and down the whole thing, and then like nobody even talks about that anymore. Even if you think about a high school election, if two of your buddies are going for president and you vote for one of them, if your vote is public, the other guy's going to be mad at you, and he's going to have hurt feelings, and you still like the guy. It's like, whatever, you know, and now he's not your friend for life and stuff because, you know, you didn't have the privacy to actually speak the way, like, because obviously he's an idiot and he's going to mess up the whole treasury if we put, he's a cool dude and all to hang out and drink beer with, but not to be the president of the school. So you see why these things are just critical. Because it's just that's a really silly example, but it extends to everything. And one of this isn't super related to this, but it was something I saw yesterday. There's a new GeoMapper OSINT tool that's available for anybody to go out and use, and what it does is it can take a picture and basically it uses AI to give you the exact map location of that photograph. And if it's in front of a house, it'll actually look on Zillow and show you the inside photos of the house and stuff. And so, yeah, it just took some girl's social media post that she put in front of her house and instantly pulled her house up, what all the inside of it looked like. It's people don't realize that. Okay, even if you take a picture and you strip the metadata out of it, that's just not a thing anymore. There's people that can just look at the angle of the sky at this time of day and the way the trees are, and they're going to be able to figure out your almost exact location. So it's just like, you really have to be purposeful about what you put out there.
Yeah. So yeah,
that's that.
Calle, do you want to say something? Do you want to add something on what Fractal just said?
Absolutely. So first of all, I mean, I need to kind of almost control myself when I hear this person talking. First of all, let's establish that this person is a complete clown. We should not take his words serious in the sense of listening to its content. The only reason we should take it serious is because he has gained power and he's in a political position. Nothing he says makes any sense. Talk to any kind of expert in this field, and they will tell you exactly also what Fractal has said. This has been discussed for decades already. So he is talking like a Stone Age clown and expects us to take him seriously. But let's do that for a second, because we need to defend ourselves against these kind of clowns in the world, and it will get harder and harder as we go on. So as he said, like the reason why most of the time political authoritarians want to limit privacy is usually to increase their level of control over their population. The reason why they find this, like the reason they will list to you as the listener in the current time, will always change depending on the weather. So the weather today is hate speech and misinformation. Hate speech and misinformation is exactly the reasons that this gentleman, sorry, the clown, has put up. If you would time travel 10 years into the past, no one would talk about hate speech or misinformation. These concepts don't even exist yet. However, everyone talks about drug smuggling and trafficking of human or child sexual abuse material. These are the narratives back in the day. after 9/11, terrorist financing came to the list. Now, you might wonder, I have nothing to do with child trafficking, child sexual abuse material, terrorist financing. I don't do hate speech or misinformation. Why is this even concerning me? And so you need to understand that these solutions these people propose, and this is not only the clown that we have seen, I think he's the Prime Minister of Spain, but there are several other clowns also in the European Parliament that, for example, chat control is one of the suggestions that they have tried to push over the years and years and years, over and over again, is the whole concept is 99.999% of users need to lose their privacy in order for them to actually do their law enforcement work and being able to catch the 0.0001% criminals that really do exist in this world. But please do understand, this is not your job to help them to find these criminals. We're talking here about law enforcement and police. You know, either they do their job and find these people, or they don't, right? And they do not do their job well. And the internet still poses a massive burden for these institutions because they're slower than the average 14-year-old in trying to adapt to the new world, right? So most police just started using Google to search for criminals, or, you know, or open source intelligence gathering and so on and so forth. So, you know, from that perspective, you can see how they argue this from a perspective of weakness, right?
Yeah.
So one other thing that I would like to mention here, and it has to do with the 99.999% number that I frankly just made up, but I'm pretty sure the actual statistics is close to it, is the concept that is very hard for non-technical people to understand. And this is something that Fractal also mentioned in a different way. He said, politicians will make this proposal of, let's create a privacy preserving system where you will have privacy and no one will be able to read it except us, right? Mm-hmm. So this is complete wrong assumption. This is not how computers work. This has been the main issue of the crypto wars, the first crypto wars that was mentioned. Also, the fourth quote is from that time. A related issue with that, and this is something that is even harder for most that I gather, for even harder for most to accept, is either there will be privacy for everyone or there will be privacy for no one. This is a second principle, right? The whole idea about privacy is that you are not distinguishable from anyone else. That also means that if you introduce privacy to a system, you automatically also give the bad guys the ability to hide. And we need to come to terms with this. There is no sugarcoating on this, right? If I would talk to a politician, I would have to kind of use the same kind of Jedi mind tricks that the clown in the clip also used to make you think that, you know, we can have privacy, but don't worry, you know, it's not going to be so bad. No, it's not going to be that way. It's pure mathematics. If you introduce privacy for the good ones, that also means the bad ones will have privacy. So we need to deal with that. We need to find a way in which we can talk about this openly, also publicly, without appearing as someone who supports, you know, child sexual abuse material, for example.
And that perhaps starts with recognizing that accountability works both ways. That is to say, government should be accountable for the total ineffectiveness of their measures, of all those measures that have been implemented in order to catch the bad guys at the expense of everyone. It looks like all these KYC, AML laws are really not productive at all. It costs a lot of money to everyone and costs a lot of privacy, but the criminal manage to find their ways. I guess it's the same thing with the gun permits and everything. If you're a criminal, you're going to find the weapon you need. So I think it starts with this. And even if the government, if you had the insurance that the government was going to remain benevolent, there's still vulnerability in the back door, and there's going to be some hackers who will leak the whole thing at some stage, as we can witness with all the government agencies and banks everywhere, right?
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting thing, and it brings me to something that Eric Kaysen talks about a lot in one of his recent books, the Crypto Sovereignty book. He talks about how the government creates a permanent state of emergency, and Calle basically pointed out very perfectly that this person is a clown, and that they're basically giving you the rhetoric of the day, whatever reasons he's giving you, the child porn or whatever it is that they're doing, like that's the wrong child trafficking or whatever thing. Like, how could you be against this? It's like they create this permanent. Kaysen's point is that they create these permanent state of emergency, always with a new fake reason for the emergency, whatever the reason is. What it is it's constantly to continue to erode your civil rights away, and most people will just end up like clapping seals and say, oh yeah, we need to give up this right because we need to get protected from all these terrible things that are happening right now. Like, if we don't do this, if we don't give up this right, then they can't catch the bad guys, just like Calle was saying. And that's actually just so wrong thinking. But for some reason they just, I think they seed this type of thinking into the population and to start it fermenting and going around. I just can't believe people are that dumb to start off with, but maybe. But it is this fake parade of different reasons that they create. No matter what day it is of the month, you're always going to have a new reason that you have to give up this right or that right, and they're always going to find. I think as we continue to expand our abilities, they will want to find ways to limit every one of those expansions. Okay, now we could do this. Oh, well, hold up. It's like, now we can fly. Well, hey, we have to have some air regulations. Well, now you can use the radio. Oh, we got to have ham radio laws. You can't talk on this frequency, or you can't do that. Oh, now we can do on the internet. Oh, well, you can't put this, can't put that. So it's like at each stage there's boundaries that are being created arbitrarily. So, and the interesting thing Kaysen points out is that being sovereign is being able to be the exception to the rule. So everybody else has these rules, but not for you. You could go around these rules because the rules are retarded. So and you put them in place, so everybody else has to live by it.
And you guys, you've been aware of all these things, and you've been thinking about all this for a long time. But are you witnessing some rise in awareness amongst the population on the fact that, hey, come on, guys, you keep stressing us with all these permanent emergency things, and but the truth is that you're constantly failing in fulfilling your core mission of justice, protecting the border, protecting the security of the individual, the core reason why you are a government. Are you seeing a change in the perceptions of people who are perhaps less gullible, or is it going to be the same thing all the time?
Percentage wise, I'm not sure. I know that we're more connected now, so we can share those ideas easier, but I don't know if the percentage of people that are keyed into that is any higher than it was in the past. I would hope so, because other people then get to access that good information. But the feeling is not really, because it's a constant cat and mouse game. As I said earlier, privacy is a spectrum. You kind of have to keep working at it, because there's always new stuff to do. Like, there's always new exposures and new things that you didn't think of before, that whoops, like, I should probably close this hole or do this or that.
I also want to make a comment here on I think this has mostly to do with the fact that, as I was saying in the intro, that we live in exponential times and things are changing very, very quickly. Our intuitions do not adapt fast enough to the change that we've been seeing. So if you would propose analog violations of privacy, analog to the ones that are discussed in the digital space, if you would propose them in the physical space, our intuitions are pretty clear. We would not let anyone put a camera into our own home to protect the children, right? It would be absurd, and people would be on the streets immediately. So I think in the digital realm, we have not developed intuitions yet, and it might actually take some time, because our whole societies, or even our bodies and our consciousnesses are based on an analog being. So it might take until we get, as a society, to a point where we can have these intuitions also for the digital space. However, as frustrating as this fight might look like, since again, so many people think that they're not affected by this, although they clearly are. I still see some development happening in the last couple of years, and it's been a very, very tough fight. And I see, especially in the realm of private messaging, this has changed dramatically, but not even close to complete, basically, this development. So again, if you think back 10 years, private messaging was one of the things that these politicians would like to eradicate from the face of the earth, because they thought that private messaging is only useful for terrorists and criminals, right? But today, we are in a point where multiple very big data leaks and political intrigues and so on and so forth have brought us to a place where we know that, you know, in order to send a love letter on the internet, that you know that you need a digitally private way to communicate. And we can feel this today.
Yeah.
And many people are switching over to Signal, for example, because they can feel the NSA looking over their shoulder slowly. You know, it just takes a long time until they develop this intuition of feeling a disgust while you write and feel that someone is reading what you're writing to your loved one, for example, at this moment. So this is a very, you know, also fundamental feeling that you need to develop. So for private messaging, I think we are making progress, and the discussion is changing to personhood, to being autonomous. You know, it gets this positive vibe at some point, slowly. And I think for the other parts of privacy, and messaging is only one single slice of the cake. If we are talking about, you know, social media is a wider range of communication. It's like a public way of communicating. It has a different narrative around it, and the narrative is currently mostly dominated with misinformation and hate speech, and this is all political. It's basically like a political party trying to defend itself against the populace. That's what it feels like to me from the outside. But and the other part that brings us together today also is financial privacy.
Yeah.
And for financial privacy, I think we have almost the entire road to still walk on. So we are very much in the beginning. Financial privacy is associated very strongly with crime and with crime. So
Okay.
it is associated in the public with crime, although it has a similar function like messaging in real life. So financial privacy, when we talk about it as developers and advocates for this, we do not talk about sending money to ISIS without being detected. Like, we don't want to support terrorists and criminal activity. But we're talking about buying the newspaper in the store, using your credit card to buy groceries, moving across the country with the digital payment identifier that can track your every footstep, right? So there are many small things that where everyday people are affected, and our interest in is to fix those, because those small issues, they actually hurt your privacy the most. It's not like you're trying to send money overseas. And although this is also part of the discussion, it is the very small, very minor looking activities that we do, especially in our online lives. So, and for that topic, I think we still have a lot to explain and a lot to talk about.
Excellent. I had come up with a few definitions again on financial privacy. I'm not sure whether they're going to be so useful given all what we've been discussing already. I mean, the first definition from the Swiss Banking Act 1934, financial privacy is the legally enforced confidentiality of banking clients' financial information. So here, really, the focus is on the responsibility of the institution, the banks. If we're not using cash, we rely on those third party, and their responsibility is to keep our financial information confidential. The second definition we have here from the Federal Trade Commission, so it's a regulatory agency in the United States. So financial privacy is the right to control the dissemination of one's personal financial information. And here, this definition stresses the notion of control. I mean, legally, the individual has got the authority to control who can access their financial data. And I guess that there's a clear parallel with the general definition of privacy, where you're supposed to have the control to reveal some information, a different type of information to different audiences. And the third definition is from the Electronic Frontier Foundation. So that's a non-profit organization. And they say financial privacy is the ability to keep your financial information and transactions confidential from others, including the government, corporation, and hackers. So here, clearly, this is all about protecting yourself against diverse threats. Yes, we may enjoy legal protection and some degree of control, but it's increasingly challenging to safeguard our financial data in this interconnected digital age. And perhaps this third definition echoes what you just said, our almost inability to catch up with this rapid evolution of the world. And as you say, I mean, our ability to discern what's really at stake in this digital age that we can hardly grasp, right?
Yeah, I think this comes back to some of what Calle said about having an intuition about what's actually going on, because there's multiple levels to financial privacy. At a very simple level, I think one of the best stories that I think illustrates it is there was a story of a girl who got pregnant, and she bought some pregnancy tests with her credit card or something. And then in the mail, they delivered some mail that was related to that and saying, "Oh, hey, are you expecting?" And I guess her dad got it, and she was a teenager or whatever, underage to some degree. And so she got kicked out of the house. And then, there was a big debate over whether this was right, that that the credit card company shared her information with an advertiser that led to this situation. And that's really not even something that most people would consider a threat, is that just the very basics of what you purchase and where you purchase it can create this map that other people can then use either for or against you. Most likely against you is the way you need to think adversarially. So that's kind of out of the bounds. But then when you think about government controlled currencies like a CBDC, that would then act as a panopticon, seeing everything you purchase, but then also can control, through maybe a social credit score or something. Hey, you didn't behave right today, so you can't buy bananas. That type of financial privacy is a whole nother level. We don't really have that in play yet, but it's certainly something that we have to be concerned about and fight against. So I think, again, we're looking at a spectrum of threats, and I think that's one of the most important things about privacy is doing threat modeling. How important is this threat? How vulnerable am I to it, and how can I mitigate it? And some things you actually can classify as, I don't care about this, it's not significant enough to me, or I can't do this because it's too expensive and too difficult to mitigate, but I know that it's there. You at least have done the acknowledgement, you did the analysis, and you're ignoring it because it's too difficult at the time. Mm-hmm. And then then you have other things that you mitigate because you can, okay, I have the resources and the time and the ability to mitigate this completely. We're going to knock this shit out. And then you just go down the line.
Calle, do you want to add something?
Well, for me, I think the only thing that I can add here is that financial privacy itself, for me, is like a subset of general privacy or communication privacy. I see my payments that I do as a piece of speech, and whoever can read my speech knows what I'm thinking, knows where I'm going, knows with whom I'm interacting. I'm not necessarily, in my mind, trying to hide anything related to money per se. It's just that money is one of the most important actions that you can perform in this world, especially in the digital world. So it's one of the most reliable markers of your intentions and your actions. Yeah. And from that perspective, I think financial privacy needs to have a much higher role in the discussion and be moved from these super exaggerated narratives of we made this example like terrorist financing or money laundering,
Yeah.
and all these terrible words that they use in this word cloud to scare off people. But we should demand that we put the discussion back into everyday lives, which is what will be most affected by the erosion of these rights. So even though you're not part of a terrorist financing scheme, the fact that you're using your credit card online means that there's at least one, but most likely many more parties that know exactly what you're doing and when you're doing that. That should be a concern for everyone.
Right. And when we talk about those CBDCs, I mean, I've been paying attention to this possibility superficially in the past few years. To be honest, I'm not quite sure. I can hear people say, "Look, I mean, they're so dumb; they're never going to make it happen. It's not going to happen in the next few years." And others just say, look, this is just inevitable. It's going to happen maybe in 10 years, 15 years, but this level of control the state will have. It's going to happen in the EU. It's going to happen ultimately in the United States. I'm not sure who's right on that. And can we foresee what's most likely to happen?
Oh, they want to take paper money away, dude. That is definitely, I think that's inevitable in some ways. They'll give any excuse to get rid of it. Hey, it costs us too much money to print pennies now. It costs us too much, we spend all this taxpayer money on printing all these bills. We could just do this digitally. They want paper money gone because paper money equals privacy. And I don't know who they is. I just think that's the move. I think I'm on team inevitable for CBDC.
But no cash, no paper money. Does it necessarily mean programmable money and tied to credit score and all that shit?
I don't know what it means, and I don't know what my time horizon is here, but it feels like that has to happen. There's just no way we continue using paper money and coins as a society. Like, as we move into the future, I don't know whether it's 10, 20, 30 years from now, like that most likely
it's a generational
thing.
Yeah.
It becomes a collectible thing. Oh, I have gold coins from the 2025. I have gold coins from then, gold coins from the 1800s. That they're collectible things, and they are valuable.
The boomer and the Gen X are gone.
They're not the money that people use. They use credits, which are whatever. They're not the Bitcoin. Or they are an extension of Bitcoin. I mean, realistically, I think, to me, everything becomes Bitcoin. Like, we're all Bitcoiners. Bitcoin controls everything in the future. That's the whole Timechain Codex story, and I'm full drank the Kool-Aid there. But I think, like, it's not an easy road there, and you always have a bad guy when you have a good guy. So Bitcoin is the good guy that's going to win eventually at the end. But yeah, the CBDCs, I think, are the bad guy. But they're there.
I mostly agree, but I also would like to say that even if it turns out to not happen due to some unforeseen change in thinking and behavior of mostly governments, the slight chance that this might already happen is enough for me to call to action. So it's probably going to happen, and even if it only happens with a small probability, it's already extremely concerning. So what do? Fortunately, we don't need their cooperation, and this is the whole point of this discussion. The reason why we can have this discussion is we don't need to ask for permission to save ourselves. We just need to save ourselves. And this is the insight from the first crypto war, which is that cryptography itself is, we say it's an asymmetric fight. You don't need a tank and a bazooka in order to protect yourself in digital space. And this is true for messaging, for information security, and it's also true for financial privacy. So instead of hoping that maybe like the 1% chance that all these dystopian visions will not come to fruition might maybe act out, instead of doing that, we should just protect ourselves today. And for that reason, everyone should use a VPN if they can, and they should use a messenger that protects their speech, and they should use a digital money that protects their individual sovereignty and privacy, like Bitcoin. And they should look into protocols that hide their activity from the world, like, for example, Cashu. So do not hope, but act. And you can do that today. And slowly we can build a parallel system, because the system, the official system, will not give us what we need. It will not make us free. It's been always the same enemy that we've been fighting against since the beginning.
We need to conquer the freedom.
It is only given to those who take it. It will never be for free. But you're lucky. This time we're lucky because we're working with mathematics, and we can use mathematics the same way that a state or a government can use mathematics. This is not a game of weapons and knives and bazookas. It's a game of rolling the dice. And so cryptography gives us finally a standing chance against a much more powerful enemy. And we have already proven that this is the case for messaging, for encryption, for online data protection. And we can also make the same case about payments and money. And this is what we're going to do. Like, whether they like it or not, we're going to do this, and you should join us. This is basically for you, the listener, who doesn't know how to contribute. This is the way you can contribute. Just use these systems, research them, and tell your friends to use these systems. That's all you need to do. You just need more people using these systems, so that everyone who uses them can be a bit more secure. The more people we are, the more safe we are all together. We say privacy loves company, privacy in numbers. The more we are, the more private we are. And this is how you can also be part of this.
Beautiful. Let's move on. Yeah, did we talk about how important privacy is in the field of engineering and perhaps science, generally speaking? Are there some scientific activities that are, I don't know, maybe considered heretic or forbidden, censored? Likewise, some engineering that's not welcomed, but that needs to happen because it's the natural path of evolution. It's and whereby privacy is needed.
Oh, I love this question, and I actually have a pretty decent background in chemistry, and that is a highly illegal thing nowadays. Like, if you wanted to like order some glassware and some reagents and some different things to your house, like, most likely if you didn't have financial privacy doing that, you would also have the local constabulary or DEA like knocking on your door as well. Not only that, like, science textbooks have been changing ever since the 1950s. If you look at old science textbooks prior to the 40s, they had all kinds of interesting reagents and technologies that you could use to basically do stuff at home on your desk, and like, science was not frowned upon back then. But nowadays, if you try to like do recreational chemistry, it's like a whole big deal. So it's funny to think about, but yes, science is criminalized to some degree, and there are very much like hidden sciences and secret sciences, and hey, you can't touch this, and it's very regulated as to, you know, which chemicals you could buy, which glassware you could buy, which books you could buy, which, you know, information you can give freely. And I think like all that is relevant to privacy. One thing that we didn't talk about also, or that we did talk about, Calle brought it up earlier. He said an interesting thing about artists that are private. It separates yourself from the artwork. It lets the art speak for itself, and he's keyed on exactly what I'm doing there. It's like, I don't think there's any benefit to me showing myself. I like the artwork to speak for itself. The art should basically say everything that it needs to say without having any kind of, like, I feel like I can only be a negative to the art. You know, the art is there to talk for me. I don't actually have much to say that's interesting. Anything that I do need to say, it's actually locked into the art. So study that. And it's kind of like, I see a lot of, say, the cute girl that shows a picture of her painting, and she does the picture of herself with the painting, and it gets a lot of likes. And you can never tell whether just the cute girl alone would have got the likes without even putting the painting. You can't tell what it's like. You're kind of diluting the stream of information coming into people like you, or do they like the painting? And I think, you know, if you see guys posting pictures of themselves with the paintings, like it can only be a detriment to the to the art, I figure. So I don't know if that was relevant, but there we go.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot we could say about forbidden science, forbidden engineering. Perhaps one thing that we could do, I mean, we've mentioned all those challenges arising around financial privacy. We've discussed Bitcoin. Calle mentioned how this public blockchain doesn't lend itself so well to anonymous payment. And so Lightning provides some good solution for it. Although there are even better solutions, we could probably talk about the different options to gain privacy on Bitcoin. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we could say on-chain. Well, it starts with good UTXO management, coin joins, and silent payment, if I'm correct. Then you have the privacy that you can gain by using sidechains. So we were talking about Lightning Network, perhaps Liquid to some extent. And then there's the Chaumian eCash used by Infedimint and in Cashu. Is this a fair categorization, this solution on chain or practices on chain, the use of sidechain and Chaumian eCash to categorize those areas where you can gain in privacy when on Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think that was a good summary. And it really depends on which system you use, what you need to be aware of, whether it's a sidechain or an off-chain protocol like Lightning, where there is no global record of the activity, or you're using a system like Cashu, where the privacy comes from the cryptography itself and not from the data availability. So this is in total, it's a very complicated field with lots of different variables, and it really depends on what you're using at the moment. And that also makes it so hard to communicate to users what they should be doing. I'm very convinced of the fact that privacy will only come if the use of private privacy-preserving systems is as easy as using any other system. It should not be additional work or require additional understanding for the user to benefit from these systems. On the opposite, it should be privacy by default. You should not have to think about anything when you use these systems, and you should just enjoy world-class security and privacy just like that. And this is our goal. We want to reach a point where the UX that we can offer is as good as it gets, and you'll just be safe by simply making use of the software. I think we can get there. So the more I work on this, the more we find out and build, the clearer my vision becomes. And it looks like that we can actually reach a point in which we can at least say that Bitcoin use on the most levels of this stack that you've mentioned will be at a point where you will just enjoy privacy by default, and there will be no way to make a mistake. And especially the mistake part is very obvious in on-chain, where you can practice really good UTXO management, as you said, or do coin joins all day long. But as soon as you just mix your coins again with with the stash that you didn't hide, then everything is messed up and you're back to zero. So these kind of foot guns should not exist, and this is what most of the work goes into, is actually making it so easy to use that you cannot make a mistake.
Okay. Calle, I understand you need to go soon. I was thinking we could conclude with maybe you've already introduced Cashu before. Maybe you want to say a few more things on.
I can just quickly wrap it up with saying that Cashu is an open source protocol. If you're a developer and you're interested in privacy and efficiency of microtransactions or monetization on the web, then Cashu is something that you should be looking at. You can find information on cashu.space. It's an open protocol. You can read the protocol and implement it. Dozens of people have done that already. So you can just by reading English text, you can write your own clients if you like, or you can use a lot of the existing software out there, which is all cross-compatible with each other, and you can include it as libraries to your projects, for example. Where would you need this? So basically in anything that requires an account, so if it would be a website where your user has a user account and a balance, for example, instead of doing that, you can use an eCash system instead. So an eCash system itself does not rely on accounts and traceable identities, but the money basically is managed as digital bearer tokens that each user holds for themselves in their own wallets. So this is just a very, very quick summary of how it works. If you're a user and you're interested in Cashu, you can also go to cashu.space and just download one of the many wallets that there are already. These are available for iOS, for Android, and all the different platforms. And you can start using Cashu as a custodial Lightning wallet and replace, for example, your wallet of Satoshi or other Lightning custodial wallet that you might have that where you know that the operator of this wallet knows exactly what you're doing. And for a Cashu wallet, when you use that, you will get the same kind of UX, and it's very easy to use and fast to use and so on. But at the same time, you will enjoy like the world-class privacy.
So for a quick onboarding on Cashu, basically you go to you use either the web wallet. Is that cashu.me or something like that? Yeah, you said.
Yeah, this is one web wallet, but there are literally dozens of wallets out there. Okay. So you can just go to cashu.space and find different wallets. You can also go to the documentation page. There's a whole list of all the different wallets that you can try. Or just Google search for Cashu and Bitcoin, and then you'll find articles written by others and so on. So you'll
you've
find
got
something
like
that
apps, like Android apps, Minibits or something like that, right?
Yes, Minibits is a great app that you can try for Android. If you're an iOS user, you can try Macadamia. It's that you'll find on the App Store. And there are multiple options for your browser, on your computer, or for your desktop as well.
And so once you've got the wallet, you send to this wallet some Lightning. You need to send sats, right? Via Lightning first, right?
Yeah, it feels just very much like an ordinary Lightning wallet. So you create invoices, you pay invoices. That's all you basically need to know in order to get going.
And then when you've got sats on your wallet, you can send either eCash token or sats, depending on whether you're transacting with eCash wallet or any other wallet. That could a normal Lightning wallet or a Fedimint wallet, right?
That's right. Yeah, you can just pay basically any Lightning invoice out there. So if you, let's say, order something with a BTC Pay server or something, and it shows you a Lightning invoice, then you can take your Cashu wallet and say scan invoice and just pay it. So it feels like a normal Lightning wallet. But if someone is in the same mint that you use, so the mint is the operator that provides this eCash transactions for you, then you can also transact directly with eCash, which is like sending them digital coins basically from your purse to their purse, just handing them over, even physically, if you like.
Yeah, that's it. You could do that offline. I saw some demo, right? Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Well, Calle, thanks a lot for joining this conversation. Fractal, same thing. It's been wonderful talking to you. It's really inspiring, the work that you're doing. Fractal, do you want to share any update on your ongoing or upcoming project before we conclude? And where can we follow you, Fractal?
Thanks very much. I don't have much to share right now as far as projects. I've got a lot going on, but I'll keep that private for now in spirit of the conversation. And that's actually truthfully something that I like to do. I don't like to share until the end because I create a lot of expectations for myself. And a lot of times I said I'm working in stuff that I don't know if I could do well yet. So I don't know if I could pull everything off. So I like to keep quiet until I actually have the cool thing to share. So we'll keep that private in the spirit of the conversation. And no, with that, you can find me on Twitter or X. I'm under Fractal Encrypt. I have a website called Timechain Artifacts. You could check that out as well. I do have that comic book for free to read there, and you can find that through my Twitter too. So I appreciate it. This was a great conversation, y'all.
Yeah, thanks a lot, boss. Ciao.
Bye bye.